Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Next Build podcast. Today, we're joined by a special guest, Brian Beck. Brian, can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you're building?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mason. Brian Beck, Proxurve Solutions. So we're an Indianapolis-based cybersecurity and AI consulting firm out here working with business owners and leaders for small to medium business intentionally. We prefer not to go into the enterprise space. We like the agility and the different challenges that small to medium business provides. And happy to be on the show today.
Thank you, man. I know a little bit about you, and we'll inform our leaders with time here. So your major topics that you really like to cover and you're an expert on is AI and cybersecurity. This is something that a lot of people are either misinformed, don't care about, or what have you. Even me personally, I know like some of the items that I work on, cybersecurity is not a main topic for me. Where do you see AI and cybersecurity going over the next 5 years?
Over the next 5 years, I think the importance of cybersecurity is only going to increase because of the capabilities of what AI can do today and how quickly it's evolving. If the cybersecurity foundation that sits underneath it that allows it to be successful, yes, Mason, you have to have cybersecurity as a secure foundation to scale any solution. But if you're not able to keep those guardrails in place, AI has the opportunity to blow you up as much as it has the opportunity to prop you up. So,
do you agree or disagree with people using AI to do penetration testing? How do you feel about this from somebody that does both AI and cybersecurity? Do you believe this is a benefit to most businesses, or do you believe that this allows attackers another attack vector?
well, actually, it's been done for a while in the industry, so it's not exactly new. It's enhanced capabilities and it's continuing evolution with those enhanced capabilities is what's new because now it's really picked up steam and just evolved much quicker than it has in the past before. I mean, AI has been around since the 40s, so this ain't anything new. What is new is the accessibility of it. But cybersecurity has been using AI to be able to combat external AI or external breach points for years now. I just think that it's becoming more and more of a necessity to be able to continue to evolve the tools internally to keep the bad guys out. So finding AI, responsible AI, to be able to try to find those exploitable holes that other organizations will be using, or users who like to sit in their basement, but they don't necessarily sit in the basement anymore. Maybe I'm dating myself. But those guys, we need those tools to be out there to find those vulnerabilities as quickly and holistically as possible so we can identify more of those zero-day potential gaps and close those up ahead of time, and should be done on a regular basis, quite honestly. So I think it's a valuable tool on both ends.
Yeah, I guess that's the race between attackers and defenders, that if they both have this tool, they can attack with it and they can defend with it. Some questions on if there becomes more attackers or if there becomes more defenders without time. But we'll ask this in a different way. So how do you see AI kind of like embedding itself in people's like workspaces, and where do you see like biggest risk or other things people aren't thinking about when it comes to AI and cybersecurity?
Where it's embedded right now is pretty much everywhere. I mean, it's in my ring, man. So if I have AI in my ring, I mean, it can be literally anywhere, right? It's in my watch, it's in my ring, it's my watch. I said my watch before, it's my phone. That was it. Your PCs, it's absolutely everywhere. And for the most part, a lot of this stuff has been around for a while, but they didn't call it AI 3 years ago, right? They said for coding, right, for coders, it was basically an if-then statement. So you'd put that in the Excel spreadsheets, right? If, then, and it would automate based on your input. Now they call it AI. So, or some kind of automation that they attribute to AI. But it's just going to continue to propagate, I guess, as they continue to find ways to innovate internally. Alexa has been AI for how long? How long have you had? You use the Google Nest or the Alexa, what do you call them? I just walk around. I have Alexas all over my house, so I constantly call them the Alexa boxes, and I'm so used to calling her Alexa. I'm absolutely everywhere, right? You can open your garage doors with it. You can do all these other things with it. It's in your car to be able to do Google Maps. It's just going to continue to find different innovative ways to be able to use it. Branded as AI right now. They now just added it to copiers and printers, and I'm still trying to figure out why. But yeah, it'll just continue to expand and propagate.
I guess that you might have some insight. I know you're looking at a lot of different softwares and a lot of different tools and stuff. Like, you seem almost not as worried. Are you saying there's a lot of are you buying into the marketing hype as well as everybody else, or not? Where do you start to draw the line between what's really groundbreaking and what's not so groundbreaking?
Well, buying into hype is definitely not my DNA. I prefer to sit back and, just like any operating system, I prefer to wait until version 2 or 3, service pack 1 or 2, before I'm going to try to roll that out as any kind of standard, let the other guys be the guinea pig and figure it out. Foldable phones, I waited until 6th generation. I mean, those hinges, right, were always a thing. But do I think it's going to continue to just innovate, and cybersecurity is just going to continue to be more and more important? And the thing that most leaders just are not recognizing right now is the risk that AI being introduced into your computing environment and your workflows and whatnot is it's just highly risky. So just going along and saying, I just did a conference for a not-for-profit out here in Indianapolis, and there 35 or 40 different senior level CFOs, CPAs that were all throughout the environment. And when you talk to them, they, just like everybody else, they've got their favorite tool. And they've got the mindset of, this is what I like to use. And what I'm continuing to try to remind people of is, from an organizational or a scalability standpoint, it's not about what I want. It's about what's best for the organization. So let's try to identify what the goal is that we're trying to work towards. And that starts to inform us as we work backwards from that. How are we going to achieve that goal? To be able to inform us how this is going to change the organization, what we need to be able to run it within the organization successfully, and the foundation of any one of those elements is going to be the cybersecurity that sits underneath it.
Interesting. Do you really see, obviously you're working with these nonprofits and you're working with these different spaces, do you see AI making these workspaces more productive, or just kind of like complicating things and adding additional time and not saving time?
Yeah, it really depends on how disconnected that organization would be, I would say. So if they don't have an intentional strategy and an understanding what they're trying to be able to achieve, I literally get phone calls from clients or from prospective clients. Brian, I want AI. Okay, great. My first question is always the exact same every time they call me, and they start off that way. Great. To do what? Something. Is literally, I am not kidding you, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not paraphrasing. I literally hear this multiple times a week. It's like, no, we have to identify what we want this thing to be able to do. And once we understand what we want it to do, again, that informs us what's the right platform we need to be able to do. How are we going to build out the agentic workflow? What are we going to be able to solve for and measure against, so that we can make sure investments we're making are going to be money well spent. It should be an investment that has a return. ROI is a thing for leadership and any other business owner that's going to be out there. So how do we identify that? How do we also identify, hey, if things are not working as expected, how quickly can we pivot because we caught it early? And what are the potential effects of that, so that we can continue to drive adoption? There's all those challenges. Leadership is not aware of it. And, from a technology leadership standpoint, technology leaders typically are not thinking of those types of challenges, which is why you have to get a number of leaders in the room with different mindsets so that we can bring them all together.
Adoption seems to be like a key part to your strategy. I know there's a lot of spend happening right now between two people instead of the whole organization, and they're spending the whole AI budget between one or two people, and they're using all of the credits. How do you give me your take on how you're getting more people to adopt this, or what adoption looks like for y'all, and how you help people adopt it a little bit better?
Yeah, intentional strategy. You've got to be intentional. You've got to line item this out. And if you're not going to talk about the breadth of what this is going to do to be able to affect the organization, you can't really understand what an adoption strategy is going to wind up looking like. You walk into people, and I'm sure you talk to them too, where people get super hyped about AI and they are using every tool under the sun and they want access to the newest, greatest version of Claude and OpenAI and whatever the heck they want to be able to have out there, Grok and all the other things. People almost never mention Copilot, which is a fascinating experience for me. But they're out there to be able to get the newest, greatest thing. For what? For what reason? What are you trying to do? Well, I need it. For what? To do what? Right? It's just, they're just doing things with it. Which, how do you define success with things? That's an excitement factor. You get an adrenaline rush off of that. That's great. But from a business standpoint, how do you monetize that? Right? How do you measure that as productivity? Is your work output increasing? And then how do I take that enthusiasm and spread that across a team of 10 or 50 or 30 or 100 or whatever that happens to be, 500, 250? How do you do that? You can't. So you've got to be intentional. You've got to communicate. You've got to educate. You got to be thoughtful all the way through. And then you've got to create an open environment so people can come to you, especially who has been, and keep in mind, in Indiana, right? So I've got NCAA down the street. They've been trying to Heisman you like crazy. They want nothing to do with technology. They feel like, hey, this thing is going to take my job, and it should be a complementary tool to each and every one of your staff. And they have to understand that.
I think that scares a lot of people. Just like building Zaptime, the AI productivity and time management tool, I've seen what other people are using AI for and just like the issues that they're having. And I think it's very hilarious to see some of the projects that the company is spending money on, or just some of the projects people are working on in general. No point in people's lives have they been more productive and unproductive at the same time. They're amplifying the good and amplifying the bad. They take a bad idea and run with it for hundreds of hours.
Yeah. Yes.
But the one like thing that was moving the needle forward, they finished that in like 3 days, and they were done with that. And then they spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on this side project that was never the full goal, and it was only something that was supposed to take a short time and just scope creep and scope creep and scope creep. I thought that has been very hilarious to see. A lot of scope creep has popped up with AI. Now everything is a little easier to build. You got to have everything, which very interesting for a lot of people. How should employees balance like their freedom and job security in an AI powered workspace? How do you the reason they're burying their heads in the sand is like they're worried they're going to either lose their job, lose hours, or lose some financial incentives. How do you get people to adopt it if they see that as a possibility?
Well, the biggest part of it, quite honestly, I mean, this is not a ground up type of solution for AI in any way, shape, or form. If organizations approach it from a ground up type solution, then it will fail and people probably will wind up suffering the consequences of it. But that's because of poor leadership decisions. Leadership has got to drive this from the top down. They've got to exemplify it. They've got to message it. They've got to teach people and message to people why this is important for them, the organization, and what they're going to be doing to be able to help upskill the people so that AI is seen as a complementary tool to what they provide already to the company. But again, if you're haphazard, I know of an organization that rolled out 100 plus Copilot licenses. Why? And the reason, no joke, was because everybody was so enthusiastic about AI, we had to give them something. There's that something again, right? No definition behind it, no strategy for it, no timelines, no expectations. How do you lead a company and an organization to success if your response is something? Does your software do something, Mason, or does it do something specific?
That is something that a lot
There's
of
that
people
word again.
I know I'm stealing your line there, but No, the direction I think is being lost, especially when you outsource some of the thinking to AI, to the strategic leadership. When you outsource the thinking of how people are going to use this and what business impact it has, I think use AI for everything except for the wrong direction, because you can take 1,000 steps in the wrong direction, but you made the steps super quickly. And I think a lot of people lost that. Is like, oh, I'm going to make all these steps in that direction, even though that was the opposite direction of where people ultimately wanted to go and the things they needed and wanted out of the tools from the beginning. I think that's something that people lacked.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this past you. If you slow down, you have the opportunity to speed up. So slow down, build the plan, understand my roadmap, and if you can then execute that plan, you go flying right past all those people that are floundering out there who have no strategy, who think something is a strategy.
This is an amazing segue. You're working with advising companies on how to adopt AI. Like, what are the first 3 steps that you're recommending? What are the things you're doing? What's the first 3 steps any organization can take to start adopting AI and the cybersecurity practices that you're preaching?
Well, the first thing is making sure that we have a clear understanding of what your vision is for AI in the organization. And if you don't have a clear vision, it's hard to know where to get started, and it's hard to know how to be able to start setting up the parameters for success, right? What are the bars we need to hit? What are the milestones we need to work towards? If we don't have that at the outset, you don't have a successful opportunity to be able to take forward. So first and foremost, define what that looks like, or at least have a vision for what that looks like. And the second step is making sure that the foundation, your cybersecurity foundation, is going to be rock solid. And if you don't know what that is, or you're like, yeah, I think we're good, as soon as you hear that, I think, we have to take a look. We've got to be able to validate what that is. So I tell most organizations, think of me as the concrete guy. You can't build a building without a solid foundation. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to find that foundation, and if there's going to be cracks in it, we need to address it as quickly as possible and shore it up. And then from there, we have a goal that we're going to start working towards. Great. So now let's start to define where our priorities are going to wind up lying, 1, 2, and 3, so that we can work towards those attainable goals that we all agree are realistic. Low-hanging fruit, no risk, right? So high reward, low risk factor. We can build some success with team who then become champions, and they wound up compounding a positive message. And that starts to break down barriers to adoption, and it starts encouraging adoption. And then the other thing is making sure that people commit to a single platform. AI and cybersecurity practices, you cannot straddle like some people. Oh, I've got my Google over here and I like to use my Google Sheets. Oh, I got my Microsoft 365 over here and I like using my Outlook, and I like Excel, but I still use Google for my email for whatever reason. Cybersecurity practices, that is just all over the board. You cannot build a solid foundation straddling that fence. Make a commitment. And now we can start building the practices and the policies, validating the technology to be able to bring all those components together. That also includes HR and all kinds of other stuff that we can build on top of it. But first 3 steps, define a vision, make sure your foundation is set, commit to a platform that we can build upon.
Got you. Give me some clarity on some of like the goal questions. So step 1, obviously having that clear goal. And then step 3 on choosing the right platform. What are those questions you're asking them to help decide if this tool is right or if this tool is? Some great situations you're seeing it used in, and kind of like some of your enterprise companies. What is those questions that you're asking? CRM? Is it marketing? What are those questions?
Well, first talking to CEO, CFO, right? Starting at that. CFO is going to control the finances and things along those lines. Obviously, that's going to be able to fund the organization. And a vast majority of the organizations, at least out here in Indiana, IT flows up through either the CEO or the CFO until you get up to an enterprise level. Now you've got CIO, CTO that may come into play, but usually they still wind up flowing through the CFO at some point. So talking to them, one of those 2 leaders, or both of them simultaneously. So what's the next 5 years look like for the organization? What are you guys planning? Is there acquisitions that are going to be in play? Is there going to be a potential sale of the company? You have some PE that may be coming in, venture capital, whatever that is. Because then we have compliancy concerns. Or are you looking to be able to position the company for sale? So you want to maximize the EBITDA of the organization so that from a selling standpoint, you can command the highest dollars to be able to come in the next 2 to 3 years, right? So then we have to make sure that we have that timeline in mind, because if you're going to set up the organization within a certain amount of time, AI strategies implemented, we got to make sure that the culture of the organization has adopted those strategies. There's a little bit more urgency that's placed behind it to be able to make those things happen, because that shows success to a potential buyer, right? And then the seller can maximize their potential returns. But if we can understand what their vision is for the company going forward based on some of those parameters, then we can start digging into, great, so when was the last time you had some kind of security audit? You haven't done one recently. It hasn't been done in the last 6 months. You've had questions or comments or concerns about the people that have been doing it or your own team. You have how many members of the team? 1 or 2. Okay, great. We really need to dig into this thing. Let's sit down. Let's talk to them. Get everybody on the same page so we understand how we need to be able to attack that foundation. And if they're on board with walking through these steps, and then they always, so how much is that going to cost? Until we can define fully how you guys operate the organization, right? Workflows, potential ideas for what you want to be able to implement here, the status of the organization, how leadership functions, communicates, manages the team, so we understand the culture. It's hard to put numbers into anything, so we need to really just take a step back, slow down, hold on, we will get there, but let's define what this looks like first. These are the steps to be able to make those things happen. Are you guys committed to making this happen? And if you get the approval from leadership, great. Let's start getting engaged and really putting the details down to the plan, and numbers will go along with it. They say yay, off we go.
Timeline, it seems like timeline and objectives being the clarity that really comes out of those kind of initial meetings. What is step 2? What does the AI-enabled workspace and environment look like in the next 5 years? What do you imagine that is? Do you imagine that's Claude? Do you imagine that's ChatGPT? Or how do you see that going?
the infamous "what's my favorite tool" question. A vast majority of the time, especially when you're talking about enterprise environments, if you want to be able to have access to what those tools can wind up providing for you, most organizations, again, here in Indiana, because that's where I'm based, so that's where my studies are all based, then Microsoft 365 is the environment that, as you continue to grow and scale your organization up to larger sizes, they overwhelmingly adopt Microsoft 365. So my first thought, if we're going to be in 365 and we don't have any specific software coding needs that are going to come into play, then why wouldn't you look at Copilot first and foremost? I'm going to have all the security permissions. I'm going to have everything set up within the 365 environment already. Copilot can inherit all those security permissions and be highly enabled at that point. Plus the dashboards that wind up becoming available through a lot of 365 tools with Viva Insights that can provide leadership with real-time dashboards, helps to validate their return on the investment, how well the team is adopting the strategies. If it's not, it's pretty visible there. So how do we pivot? And it's real-time data that's just shown right to you and native to the environment, which makes it more secure and also a whole lot more fluid in the environment. And it's multi-model. So on the back end, I can have OpenAI, which it's already enabled with. I can have Claude, it's already enabled with. And then through Microsoft Foundry, I've got access to 11,000 other models. So give me a really good reason why that would not be the best solution inside that environment. Now, on the other hand, if you're in a Google-based environment, why wouldn't you think about Gemini? Gemini is a highly capable tool that's going to be there, and it's already native 365. Not quite the same full feature capabilities that Copilot has, but it is a crazy powerful tool that is available for you, especially to be image generation, data research, things along those lines. But there are use cases where having the standalone OpenAI or Claude, especially with software and their codecs, is crazy incredibly powerful. Then that's why we need to walk through how the organization does what it does, why it's trying to be able to achieve where it wants to be able to go to, its growth patterns, its business strategies, those different variables that lie within those, but also the strengths and some of the weaknesses with each one of those LLMs is going to wind up either bubbling them to the surface as the right solution or disqualify them as well.
Okay, so Copilot and Gemini are probably a great place for most people to start. That's the great next step for a lot of people to take. Another idea that I wanted to steal from you, you were talking about like traditional cybersecurity principles. I know it's always been every CISO or cybersecurity analyst is like, it's got to be one tool and not 1,000. It's just very hard to manage and maintain security whenever we have hundreds and hundreds of different tools versus one centralized location. So it's nice that Copilot has other options that you can use, and Gemini as well, it's already connected into the environment. Do you think AI cybersecurity will be different than traditional cybersecurity and the principles you apply there, or is it just the same? This is just the new tool.
The principles, the foundational elements are still the same. Now, you want to have the right tool. You do want to have a bit of a tool mix that's going to be there, because if you have one singular platform that's doing absolutely everything for you, and there happens to be some kind of outage, like what happened, right? CrowdStrike had that outage and took out like half of North America. So on one hand, that shows the power of what that can do, and good on you, CrowdStrike. You guys obviously were doing a great job with all the clients until that day. But it was one incident. Outside of that, CrowdStrike's been pretty rock solid. So you do want to have a slight mix of tools to be able to avoid situations along those lines, but also having one singular point of breach opportunity, right? But you don't want to have too many, because now I got credentials all over the place, and to your point earlier, now I got way too many things I got to be able to try to manage and keep updated, and all those different vulnerabilities that are going to wind up popping up from this one to this one to this one to this one. And it would be impossible to think that any one team is going to be able to manage all those variables. So you got to get the right balance and the right mix, and have those most of those tools be able to communicate or balance one another so that there's a complementary component to them to come into play. 7 layers of cybersecurity, right? And the weakest link is always us. We're the guys who tell computers, hey, click on that. Even AI, we're the ones who said, hey, you have permission to do whatever. So ultimately, we own the responsibility and the accountability, no matter where people want to be able to pass it off to. We own it. So we've got to be trained on it. We got to recognize that, and we got to be able to work with it and accept responsibility for it. But AI does add almost an 8th layer that you've got to be able to think about, because of how AI operates and the fact that it's compelled to provide an answer. You have users that are putting in different quality of prompts, right? So prompts are going to force AI to go out there and search for answers. And if the prompts are really bad, it's going to search harder to try to figure out, what are you trying to have me go look for, and fill in a gap between whatever is inside your company information, if it has access to it, and then go out to the web to be able to try to fill the gaps. If you don't have metadata set up, it has more of an opportunity to say, man, I have no idea what you're looking for. I'm going to go search the web all over the place. And if you don't have some of the back-end parameters set up, like outbound web filtering, where the AI can go, you don't put the restrictions in place, you can get some fascinating answers that wind up coming back. Hallucinations, was that a valid website? Was it a reputable website it wound up pulling that information from? All those different pieces that wind up coming into it that can make for a good experience or a negative experience. AI amplifies that, just like it can amplify how well Mason can put together certain strategies and be maybe a sounding board for if you had an idea for a software or software enhancement. Throw that into AI and ask for some feedback about this. Have you ever seen anything along these lines, right? Have it challenge you, or even through voice, interview you and be able to give you different thought patterns that all of a sudden sparks different ideas, right? Based off of information that's already available. Okay, that's great. That can be amazing. But what if it's a irreputable website that it's pulling those questions from, and it gets you heading in the wrong direction? That's a problem. So let's make sure we're focused to like peer-reviewed data. Again, that's another reason that I am a fan of Copilot, because it's got Microsoft Bing on the back end, which sometimes can be a no-no word to certain people. But Microsoft does a great job of being able to leverage their ecosystem to be able to filter out the nonsense and the garbage and focus to validated websites, reputable websites, things that isn't going to be way out on a fringe in any way, shape, or form, in whatever context you want to be able to take that in. So as it comes in through Copilot, when you're using that as a search engine, like a lot of people do, for whether you're using any AI, right? Biggest component of that is people use it as a search engine still, but it's a really powerful one. It comes in with validated information. So it helps to clean things up, and it's more of a reputable tool to be able to use because of the architecture on the back end. And I think Microsoft does itself a disservice not helping to bring more of that to the surface.
Yeah, no, Purview, I've had the experience of using Microsoft Purview for some of the like AI governance and stuff. Oh my lord, that is a great application. It's
When you know how to use it, it can be pretty powerful, yeah.
it's something. I've gotten bothered by some of the filters, and it's been interesting to try and deal with my own AI adoption in our team. Granted, we're going to be a little bit better, but the purview and things that come along with it have been crazy. I want to flip this back to you with a couple last questions. Is Copilot like one of the biggest trends you see people haven't caught on to yet, or what's the one big technology or trend you see people haven't caught on to yet?
Well, to answer the first part of it, Copilot, I think, does get a bad rap. And part of that is Microsoft's own fault, because when they provide it for you with the Microsoft 365 licensing, regardless of whether you're going to use the personal side or the business side, they provide it for you. Especially when you have a Windows 11 PC, right? Which at this point everybody has to have. If anybody watching this has a Windows 10 PC, I'm sweating for you, man. That's a problem. Got to fix that. But those things, Microsoft gave people access to a free tool that is shackled. I mean, that thing is handicapped like nobody's business, but it was their way to be able to try to introduce people to AI. The thing that wound up happening was people went out and they bought their Claude license. And they're like, wow, look how much better Claude is than, well, yeah, you're not comparing apples to apples, right? You got an apple to a shoelace. I mean, it's not even close. So come on, man. Or some people went out and they did OpenAI. And they got ChatGPT, and then they compare that to the free or wrapped in Copilot, however you want to be able to view it, rather than leveraging it against Copilot for Business. And they just think that OpenAI is like the bee's knees. I mean, it's the greatest thing ever, and Copilot is terrible. And yet, you take a look at adoption rates or how many paid licenses there are, and Microsoft Copilot blows it out of the water. Now, I'm going to throw this to Mason. And Mason, what was the biggest part of growth over the last year for Copilot? When did that happen?
When did the biggest growth happen? I think, obviously, I was going to give you something. Whenever they had the licenses for unlimited usage with any model provider through the Copilot CLI, that was a crazy, crazy time. I think that probably would be the biggest growth. But
that was a big part of it, but there was one specific factor that made it go boom in a good way.
Is it the auto adoption? You might have to prompt me here a little bit. Give me your thoughts.
It was when they made Claude available.
Oh, yes.
When they made Claude available through the back end of Copilot, their licensing exploded. It was something like 52%.
Yeah, that's what I was using it for.
It was incredible. The adoption rate was absolutely incredible. So I have a lot of clients that'll tell me, oh, Brian, I got to have Claude. I'm only going to use Claude. I had one guy tell me he wanted to rip Copilot circuits out of the computer, throw it out his office window, and watch the circuits burn in the middle of the street. I was like, that's a bit of a strong reaction. Can you explain to me why you have those strong feelings? And he just said, because I like Claude. Why? Cowork. But what do you use it for? I use it for cowork. But what do you do with cowork, right? And there was no real definitive reason. It was just because of what it did, it was so different than what Copilot had available for it at the time that it drove him to be a fan of what it can do. Now, what's the argument? Because now you've got Cowork through Copilot. You've got the fully enabled Claude through Copilot. But Microsoft will never release the newest, well, I shouldn't say never, and I shouldn't speak for Microsoft. But what I have seen as a trend is Microsoft doesn't release the newest version of the AI models through Copilot for a very specific reason, and it's a good reason. It's because they need to make sure that the guardrails that are put around with Copilot will be able to be used safely with the new model of the AI they're hooking onto the back end. So they're doing it to help protect people from themselves and also helping to protect their liability, because they don't want to have that boom and make the news that, hey, they made this available and Microsoft caused this breach because of this on the back end, right? And this happened through Copilot. So they're doing it for obviously two reasons, but two good reasons. I mean, quite honestly. And when you've got these models that are evolving so quickly, there's a lot of work on the back end, infrastructure wise, to be able to make sure that these tools, especially a multi-model solution like a Copilot, is going to be safe to use with those models plugged into the back end, so that users have that familiar interface and they can just get their stuff done. And they can get it done faster, more effectively, and you don't have to worry about a breach happening. Leadership doesn't like to pay money. They like to make money.
Very true. Great points. Where can people connect to learn more about you, Brian?
You can go to LinkedIn. So just type in Brian Beck Proxurve, Proxurve, and guarantee you I'm the only one that's going to pop up. And then the other thing would be go to proxurve.com, and you'll be able to learn more about the organization there. And there's a info link that you can click on there, put in your submission request or whatnot, and I will follow up with you shortly after.
Is that the best thing that the Next Build podcast community can do for you?
That would be a great thing that the Next Build podcast would be able to do, is to be able to help provide that introduction and amplify that message. But whatever I can do to be able to help Mason out, I'm greatly appreciative of the opportunity for the conversation tonight, and I'm happy to be able to return the favor in any way that I can.
Thank you.
Absolutely.